The Bible, as a sacred text revered by millions, contains verses that have been interpreted and debated in various ways throughout history. These passages touch on sensitive topics ranging from morality and justice to social norms and theological principles. Let's explore some of the most controversial verses in the Bible and the debates they provoke. Number 1, Genesis 19:5. They called to Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we can have sex with them." This verse from the story of Sodom and Gomorrah raises questions about homosexuality, consent, and the consequences of sexual sin. Number 2, Exodus 21:20-21. Anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished if the slave dies as a direct result, but they are not to be punished if the slave recovers after a day or two, since the slave is their property. This passage, addressing the treatment of slaves, has been controversial due to its implications for human rights and ethical treatment of individuals. Number 3, Leviticus 20:13. If a man has sexual relations with a man, as one does with a woman, both of them have done what is detestable. They are to be put to death. Their blood will be on their own heads. Often cited in discussions about homosexuality, this verse reflects ancient Hebrew law and has been interpreted in various ways across different religious and cultural contexts. Number 4, Deuteronomy 22:28-29. If a man happens to meet a virgin who is not pledged to be married and rapes her, and they are discovered, he shall pay her father 50 shekels of silver. He must marry the young woman, for he has violated her. He can never divorce her as long as he lives. This passage addresses the treatment of rape victims within the context of ancient Israelite society, prompting debates about justice, victimhood, and the role of women. Number 5, Psalm 137:9. Happy is the one who seizes your infants and dashes them against the rocks. This verse expresses raw emotion in the context of the Babylonian exile, but its violent imagery raises ethical questions about divine justice and human suffering. Number 6, Matthew 10:34-36. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. These words of Jesus challenge traditional perceptions of him as a purely peaceful figure, highlighting the divisive nature of his message and its potential societal impact. Number 7, Ephesians 5:22-24. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. This passage has been central to discussions about gender roles, marriage, and equality within Christian communities, sparking debates about mutual submission versus hierarchical relationships. Number 8, 1 Timothy 2:11-12. A woman should learn in quietness and full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet. These verses have influenced debates about women's roles in religious leadership and authority, reflecting cultural norms and theological interpretations. This passage, found in 1 Timothy 2:11-12, has been a focal point in discussions about gender roles within Christianity. To understand its meaning and implications, it's essential to consider the cultural, historical, and theological context, as well as the broader scriptural teachings about women. Paul wrote this letter to Timothy while Timothy was overseeing the church in Ephesus. Ephesus was a prominent city in the Roman Empire, known for its worship of the goddess Artemis. The Artemis cult included female leadership, which may have influenced some women in the church to adopt practices or attitudes inconsistent with early Christian teachings. This cultural backdrop could explain why Paul addresses women in a way that emphasizes learning in submission. The word quietness, Greek hysuchia, does not necessarily mean complete silence. Instead, it often implies a calm, peaceful demeanor. Paul seems to encourage women to approach their learning with a teachable spirit, rather than in disruptive or contentious ways. The term submission is frequently misinterpreted as servility, but often refers to an orderly and respectful posture. In this context, it aligns with the broader principle of order in worship, a recurring theme in Paul's letters. See 1 Corinthians 14:40. Submission here can be understood as a willingness to respect and learn from spiritual authority rather than challenging or undermining it. The Greek word translated as authority, authentine, is unique to this passage and has sparked significant debate. Unlike the typical word for authority, exousia, authentine can carry connotations of domineering or assuming control improperly. Some scholars suggest that Paul was prohibiting a specific kind of authoritative teaching that might have been problematic in the Ephesian church context. 1 Timothy 2:11-12 is best understood as addressing a specific cultural and church issue rather than establishing a universal prohibition. However, it highlights broader themes such as the importance of orderly worship, respect for authority, and the value of learning. In modern contexts, interpreting this passage often involves balancing its historical background with the Bible's overarching message of equality and mutual respect. Number 9, Revelation 20:10. And the devil, who deceived them, was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet had been thrown. They will be tormented day and night, forever and ever. The depiction of eternal torment in this verse has sparked theological debates about the nature of hell, divine justice, and the afterlife. This verse, from Revelation 20:10, describes the final judgment of the devil, the beast, and the false prophet. It portrays their ultimate defeat and eternal punishment, symbolized by being cast into the lake of burning sulfur. This vivid imagery is part of the apocalyptic vision given to John in Revelation and has deep theological implications. The phrase, tormented day and night, forever and ever, emphasizes the unending nature of this punishment. It conveys the seriousness of rebellion against God and the ultimate consequences of evil. This raises questions about the character of God and the justice of eternal punishment. Some interpret this as literal, while others see it as symbolic of complete and irreversible destruction. The punishment reflects the idea of divine retribution, justice meted out by a holy and righteous God. The devil, as the ultimate deceiver and source of evil, receives a punishment commensurate with his actions. This challenges readers to consider the balance between God's justice and his mercy. Imagine a courtroom where the most heinous criminal is finally brought to justice after decades of evading accountability. The judgment is severe because the crimes were not only against individuals, but against the entire fabric of justice and morality. This mirrors the depiction in Revelation. The devil is not an ordinary wrongdoer, but the ultimate instigator of rebellion against God and his creation. For those who see this verse literally, the punishment of the devil is eternal incarceration with unending suffering, comparable to solitary confinement in its most extreme sense, but infinitely worse. For those who see it symbolically, it might be akin to a criminal permanently losing all rights, identity, and existence. This verse encourages believers to reflect on the finality of God's judgment, the severity of sin, and the hope that evil will ultimately be defeated. It also invites discussion on God's justice, mercy, and the human response to his grace. Number 10, John 14:6. Jesus answered, I am the way, and the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. This verse, emphasizing exclusivity and salvation through Jesus, has been controversial in interfaith dialogues and discussions about religious pluralism. These controversial verses highlight the diversity of perspectives and interpretations within the Bible. They challenge readers to engage critically with the text, consider historical contexts, and reflect on how these ancient words continue to shape beliefs and practices today. What are your thoughts on these verses? Have they sparked personal reflection or conversations in your own life? I'd love to hear your insights and perspectives in the comments below. Let's continue this exploration with openness and respect for diverse viewpoints. Stay curious and keep exploring.